Mavis was born to Frank and Violet. She was the middle child of 3. Early childhood was normal for a war baby. She went to the local schools and was an avid young dancer. She joined a dancing school where they performed concerts for charities. Later, she gained a place in the Girls' Technical College. She wanted to follow a career in catering. When she was almost 16, it was inevitable she met a boy, and this boy, Raymond, was to become her lifelong partner. She married him at 18, and for a while pursued her catering dream, working in the famous Bull Hotel, which was made famous by Charles Dickens. Later, she became a mother of 3. Returning to work at a later date, she decided to venture into an industrial environment as opposed to catering. Unknown at this point to her or Ray, she had already been exposed to the evils of asbestos, and it isn't clear if this exposure was as a child from her father, who was in daily contact with asbestos, or from Ray, who was also in daily contact with asbestos, as both of these worked in the Royal Dockyards. It was to be another 40-odd years before this asbestos reared its ugly face again, this time in the format of mesothelioma. Tragedy first hit Mavis when our eldest daughter was tragically killed at age 16. This took its toll of the family, and it was ages before life began to look a bit brighter again. Several years later, tragedy decided to strike again when Mavis became sick over the Christmas period. Ray found her on Boxing Day morning, almost lifeless. She was rushed into hospital. She had gone into renal failure. After several tests and relocation to a different hospital and an operation which saved her life, it was several weeks before she began to improve again. The next time tragedy struck was in May 2009. She had just spent 3 happy months in Spain visiting our son. She complained of shortness of breath and pains in her arms and her hands. And when we got home, we visited our doctor. The rest is now history. She was diagnosed with mesothelioma, and this short presentation is her story.
So mesothelioma is a very unusual cancer, and it's an unusual cancer both because of how it's caused and how it behaves. It's caused by a substance known as asbestos. People who work with asbestos are at very high risk of getting mesothelioma, and indeed prior to the ban, those individuals who were exposed perhaps 30 or so years ago have now gone on to develop the disease. We have around about 2,000 patients a year being diagnosed, and we anticipate this is going to increase significantly over the next 10 years or so. The feeling is that over the course of the next half century, we'll have seen historically much higher numbers than have ever been seen before. If you go back to the early 70s, this was an exceedingly rare disease, and what we're clearly seeing is the effect of this exposure many years ago. People working directly with this material, but more recently, and also those individuals with indirect contact, teachers, we're seeing pupils even presenting who may have had exposure through their contact in schools, for example.
I came into contact with asbestos when I was a bride. I just got married, and Ray was working in Chatham Dockyard, And so I was so pleased I could do his washing, and I had a new washing machine to do it in. You had two. You had a spin dryer and a boiler. But in doing that, he worked with asbestos and he brought it home on his clothes. And I didn't know the dust that I was shaking away had this asbestos in, and I must have breathed it in at that point. In 2008, my arm went numb, and I was told that I had a trapped ulnar nerve by my doctor, but I wasn't happy about that. I went to Benidorm, and when I came back, in the motorhome, so for 2 months, and when I came back, I really was getting breathless, and I had to go to polling station in the May of 2008, and I couldn't walk up there. I found myself so out of breath. I'd already had an x-ray, the doctor had sent me for an x-ray. When I got home, he phoned up and said, "You've got your x-ray report, it looks bad, so you look like you've got fluid in there." He said, "I've booked a bed," and so we had to rush into emergency, and they drained 7 litres of fluid. And in that fluid, when you test it, there was the cancer cells, mesothelioma.
This is a really devastating diagnosis to receive, and the reason for that is that this is an incurable cancer. Patients will ultimately live the rest of their lives with this disease, and we would say on average actually that survival is about a year. Now there are some individuals who can live a lot longer than 1 year, but there are also most of patients who will have disease that can progress within that year and obviously shorten their life because of that.
At the time I was diagnosed, I was devastated. It was between me and the doctor who told me, but I had to stop him because he started to describe what was really there, and I had cancer and a tumour, and I said, "Stop." I thought I could do this on my own. I said, "Would you wait till my husband came in?" And he said, "Okay." So when Ray came in, that was when he told us that I had mesothelioma. He suspected it, and I was given 3 months to live. I would never call it cancer. I would only talk about mesothelioma because I didn't want cancer involved, and I've only just started to really talking and describing it as a cancer. You're devastated, and shock isn't, you're very shocked, but I didn't cry, and I've never cried, and I've never been angry. I just thought, right, now we'll fight it.
For mesothelioma, the only standard treatment that we have available is really drug-based treatment, and that's with chemotherapy. Now in the UK and worldwide, we only have one standard of chemotherapy, and that's pemetrexed and platinum-based drugs. The patients will receive a course of treatment that may extend to about 4 to 6 treatments, but once they've had treatment, that's pretty much it. There's not really much more available in the way of standard of care. And so clinical trials, by and large, form a really important option for patients in whom we want to maintain quality of life and extend life. There are trials, and the UK is really pioneering randomised trials in surgery, and also we have a number of randomised trials currently enrolling in radiotherapy in the UK.
I'm the only person to have survived to 5th line down in Kent and Canterbury, and so they just don't know what to treat me with. So I've been travelling around trying to find, using the computer to search for something that I could have. I need it today, tomorrow, because I might not be around soon.
I think we're getting a lot more intelligent about how we design the trial. For example, one of the trials that we're involved in is about trying to stabilise the cancer after chemotherapy. This type of treatment is called maintenance therapy. And the drugs that we're using to do this is a drug that can do 2 things. First of all, it can target a group of cells called stem cells. These are the cells, seeds if you like, which, although in a minority within the cancer, essentially give rise to the cancer itself. Now, if these cells are growing, the cancer comes back, and if they're not growing, the cancer should be quiescent and stable over longer periods of time. Chemotherapy may actually aggravate these cells, may actually cause the cells to grow, the stem cells. And so having a drug that can target these specifically, I think, is extremely important and very novel. The second thing about one of the maintenance studies that we're involved with at the moment in the UK is that the drug of interest that we're studying has also the property of being more active in a particular mutation. So half of mesotheliomas seem to carry a particular mutation in a gene called NF2. If a cancer has NF2 mutation, then we think this drug will work more. And the more common this mutation is within the disease, the more likely it is that this drug may work. And so I think with mesothelioma in particular, because we've never had a trial of this type conducted before, there's every probability that we may have some benefit for patients.
What I've been doing since diagnosis really, I wanted to make everyone know about asbestos and how dangerous it is in their house still. People don't realise it's still in their house. They don't realise it's when they decorate their house and do DIY, you're putting the dust everywhere again because it's in things like Artex. And I found it in my fire in the year 2000, sitting in electric fire, brand new fire. Because it was imported, it must have been caught in there. But it's in the cement dust, it's in air conditioning pipes, everywhere.
Morning, folks. Welcome to the Sunday Politics.
For a year than road traffic accidents, and the South East has the highest number of incidents in the country. Mesothelioma is a type of cancer caused by exposure to asbestos. For many sufferers, claiming compensation has been difficult, but a new law is about to make it easier. But does it go far enough? Our reporter, Sarah Neville, went to speak to sufferers and campaigners to find out why they say the bill is a missed opportunity.
I started in 1953 as a shipwright apprentice at 15.
Ray Nye from Sea Salter in Kent worked at Chatham Dockyard, in heavy industry like thousands of people in the South East, where use of asbestos was widespread. He married his childhood sweetheart, Mavis, but 60 years on, Mavis has mesothelioma, an aggressive form of lung cancer caused by breathing in asbestos fibres whilst washing her husband's work clothes.
I've said ever since that diagnosis that it's me, it's my fault, that I give it to her, because I brought it home on my clothes. We've discussed this at length, because I still feel guilty.
But I don't think he should be guilty. The government in that time should feel guilty.
Mavis Nye, who now campaigns on the issue, feels let down.
There's a lot going on in USA and Australia, but not us. Not to the extent that they are. They're really sort of plunging the money into it all, and we just need some money for research.
A woman from Kent who is dying from cancer that she believes was caused by asbestos dust on her husband's work clothes says that she wants to see a change in the law to allow patients and doctors to try out new and innovative treatments.
Mavis Nye from Whitstable this week joined the advertising guru Lord Saatchi at the launch of his Medical Innovation Bill, which seeks to give medics greater freedom to push the boundaries. Simon Jones spoke to her and her husband about their campaign.
Dear Mavis, thank you so much for yesterday. You are extraordinary, and I take my hat off to you.
A letter of thanks from Lord Saatchi for her campaigning to a woman who's been told there are no new treatments for her 5 years after being diagnosed.
Well, you're facing death, aren't you? I don't want to die this way, because you actually run out of breath.
Mavis's husband worked at the Chatham Dockyard in the 1950s. She believes she breathed in asbestos fibres from his clothing, leading to mesothelioma, a lung cancer.
For me, it's like I've given her a death sentence. We have discussed this. She says it's not my fault. Neither of us at the time knew about it, but it doesn't make it any easier.
This week, having heard Mavis's story, Lord Saatchi invited her to the House of Lords as he launched a consultation on plans to give cancer doctors freedom to innovate without fear of prosecution. He lost his wife to cancer.
Will this bill cure cancer? No, but it will encourage the man or woman who will.
Being a guinea pig doesn't worry me because it's for the future. So therefore, for me, they will learn for the future. And they might find a cure from all that, so I would try anything.
But solicitor Nick